Hey, it's Dr. Charles, aka CoachMD. I'm here to help you create a great life by achieving a healthy body, a strong mind, and an unshakable spirit. Today, I'd like to talk to you about sugar. Well, sugar. I mean, really, sugar, it seems kind of basic. Everybody knows about what sugar is. But do we really know what sugar is? Sugar is a compound that is very important to our survival. In fact, as animals, we've evolved where we need quick spurts of energy. And sugar provides that. Sugar provides the energy to help us move fast, to help us fight and flee when we need to from danger. And sugar helps us think, actually. I don't know if you knew this, but the brain only operates on sugar. That's right. The energy that the brain needs is only derived from sugar. So sugar itself is very important. Unfortunately, what has happened over the years is that our reliance on sugar has become really too great because it tastes so good. And the basic way that sugar works is it's present in all types of foods that are in the wild. It's like fruits and vegetables that we can get just without processing. But because it tastes so good, and it's a reason why it tastes so good, is because it makes it easy for us to ingest. So when we get the sugar, we'll need to get that quick energy. If it didn't taste good, we'd be in a lot of trouble. So really, it's very important that we take in sugar because of that. But what we get in our diet is actually too much. And sugar is what is called a carbohydrate. And a carbohydrate means it has carbon atoms. And you have what are called simple carbohydrates and complex carbohydrates. And simple carbohydrates really are the simple to complex means how many sugars are attached together. So a simple sugar is only two sugar compounds together, maybe two of them. Whereas a complex may be 5, 10, 20, all attached together. And so they break down differently. And when we intake that sugar, it is absorbed at different points. The necessity for us as animals to take in sugar is very important. But what does it do to our body? Well, when we ingest sugar, it causes a reaction from our pancreas to put out a hormone called insulin. And some of you may know insulin being, if you've heard of diabetics, there's insulin-dependent diabetics. When somebody is young, for instance, they may develop this. It's a genetic disease. And it means that the pancreas cannot release insulin, and insulin is the key to open up the door to cells so sugar can get out of the bloodstream. Because too much sugar in the bloodstream, I'm going to go over that in a little bit, is not very good for us. In many respects, it's very bad for us. So those of us who can't process that, the sugar, when we take it in our diet, whether we're a type 1 diabetic, meaning our pancreas doesn't produce the insulin to get the sugar out of the bloodstream, or whether we're a type 2 diabetic, which means we have plenty of insulin. Our pancreas is pumping out insulin, but what happens to our body is that insulin, being the key, no longer fits in the lock to open up the door to let the sugar get into the cells. That is what's called insulin resistance, to cause a defect in the locks. So as I said, the insulin doesn't fit in and the door can't open. So sugar is circulating in the bloodstream, and so is a lot of insulin. So the insulin level rises, the sugar level rises, and it does really bad things to our body. Whereas an insulin-dependent diabetic, you have to give them sugar. Most type 2 diabetics, you don't give insulin to, although some you do. Now, what causes type 2 diabetes? It's mainly being obese. And in following videos, I'm going to talk to you a lot about why this happens. And in my Patreon campaign videos, if you're a Patreon member, you will learn how you can use your knowledge of all this to help you lose weight, obesity causes insulin resistance. It will cause the fat cells to produce chemicals that interfere with the lock that the insulin fits into. And it'll cause that defect. And when we ingest sugar, it just sits around in our bloodstream. And that doesn't do any good for us, because what happens to circulating sugar, it's converted into fat. So if we have too much sugar circulating around and we don't have insulin to help get it into the cells, mainly in the liver and the muscle. The liver stores a lot of sugar. But if we don't have the proper key and lock mechanism going on, that excess sugar is shunted into fat cells, converted into fat cells, and it stores a lot of fat. And so it's kind of a vicious cycle, because the more sugar is converted into fat, the more it will produce those chemicals, which further causes a defect in the key and lock mechanism, and the sugar kind of circulates around. So it's very important to understand what is going on with sugar. And I mentioned before now, there's a difference between simple sugars and complex sugars. So what happens when we ingest sugar? And sugar comes in all forms. But let's talk about first what happens when we ingest a simple sugar like sucrose. Sucrose is table sugar. If you look on labels, you might see glucose. And that is also a simple sugar, meaning it only has two molecules together. When you ingest it, it gets broken down very quickly, and it's absorbed as a simple sugar very quickly. So what that does is it signals the pancreas to put out insulin, but most of the time it gets converted so fast, the sugar spikes way up before the insulin can bring it down. And the insulin brings it down again by fitting into the key, opening up the door, and letting the sugar go into muscle or liver cells for storage. So that's what happens with the simple sugar. Another terminology you may have heard is called a high glycemic index. So simple sugars have a high glycemic index. Another simple sugar that you may or may not be aware of is fructose. Now, fructose is the sugar that appears in fruits, and by all accounts, we think that fruit's good for us. And I'm not going to say it's not good for us, because the whole fruit does have fiber, which I'm going to talk to you about in a second, which is considered a complex carbohydrate. But it also will spike blood sugar. And I'm going to talk to you a lot about that in the next video, which is why this is so important, why we have to kind of time things and understand it in order to apply it to lose weight, actually, and to stay in a healthy, fit weight. So it's very important to understand that fruit will spike our blood sugar. I'm going to talk to you again in other videos, and especially my Patreon video, how you can still eat fruit, stay healthy, and avoid spikes in blood sugar that will lead to the storage of excess fat and putting on weight. So those simple sugars are absorbed quickly, called high glycemic index foods, including fruit, such as bananas and grapes. Those are two of the biggest. I say red grapes. Red grapes are fruit that will spike your blood sugar pretty high. And I've experimented with myself on this, and I will give you, a lot of other tidbits in other videos, how you can also monitor this to know what it does to your body and how ingesting it will increase your blood sugar. So it's important to understand that the simple sugars will spike your blood sugar pretty high pretty quickly. If you don't have insulin resistance, it will come down. But if you do have insulin resistance, it may not come down that quickly, because, again, the insulin that it makes your pancreas put out or secrete is defective, because it doesn't fit in the lock, so it's going to keep circulating around your bloodstream. That's why it's really important to keep a fit weight, so you know that your sugar in is going to get out of your bloodstream quickly. If you're obese, it may not get in that quickly, and again, that vicious cycle just keeps going. So it's important to understand that. Complex carbohydrates are also broken down in your GI tract, in your gastric system, into simple sugars, but it happens much more slowly as it's digested. So they would be considered low glycemic index foods, and they're broken down more slowly. And what would those be? Well, whole grains will do that. Whole grains will break down more slowly than the simple sugars or the less complex carbohydrates. And those would be things like white bread as opposed to the high fiber or complex carbohydrate breads. There's kind of a rule of thumb that you can go by if you're shopping and deciding what to eat. If you dropped it off the shelf and it hit your foot, if it didn't do anything, didn't affect your foot at all and didn't hurt at all, those are the ones you want to avoid. Those are the ones that are broken down very quickly. The ones that might be a thud on your foot and might hurt a little bit, those are the complex carbohydrates, breads, and those are ones that will be a lower glycemic index. Now, I know some of you are wondering about diets and low carbohydrate diets, and a lot of low carbohydrate diets say avoid them at all costs. What I've learned investigating this myself is that the complex carbohydrates are broken down much more slowly, don't tend to increase blood sugar at all. So those are those ones that could be substituted and could be used. So I think that that's, a really good rule of thumb, is that if you're looking to follow what I'm talking about, how to lose weight through knowing the what's about your blood sugar, then what to eat would be important and what to avoid. So it would be the less complex carbohydrate breads you want to avoid, and the higher fiber breads, the whole wheat or 100% whole wheat, whole grain, multiple grains, not just whole wheat, because when it says whole wheat, actually bread is wheat. It's made from wheat. It is whole wheat. So you want it to be 100% whole wheat, multi-grain is the best. And there are a lot of different brands out there. Dave's, for one, is a good brand for that. And I've learned that from my own experience. It's important to understand that your blood sugar is affected by foods that you eat. But what else can affect your blood sugar? Just being alive, just living actually will affect your blood sugar. And what I mean by that is that our body has what's called a circadian rhythm. A circadian rhythm that has to do with our body clock. And there's a hormone called cortisol, which is a stress hormone. And as I said in the beginning of the video, that we need sugar for quick energy to escape predators or to get prepared for any type of battle, which obviously in the modern day is not practical because we don't need to do that. However, our body is still programmed that way. Our body will automatically cause us to have a higher blood sugar in the morning because the cortisol starts being released or secreted around 4 to 5 o'clock in the morning. So when we're getting up, and back in the day, 10,000 years ago, getting up meant going and foraging for food and also moving from one camp to the next. So we needed that. We've been programmed to actually have a higher blood sugar in the morning. So it's important to understand that, because a lot of us think we need the quick energy and we need to eat sugar in the morning. You really don't. Your blood sugar is automatically going to be a little higher in the morning. It's important to understand that. The other thing is that your blood sugar will start to decrease as the day goes on, but then increase again later in the day, around, let's say, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So your actually blood sugar again is starting to rise in the afternoon because your body is producing cortisol. So it's important to understand this because you want to know about the timing of eating. A lot of us eat a big breakfast, dinner, and maybe not so much for lunch. If we were just going to eat one meal a day, one meal a day, it would be around lunchtime. That would be the time of day to do it because it's right within the circadian rhythm. I'm not telling you to do that, but it's just to be considerate of what you're eating. If you're going to eat more sugary foods, they probably should be around midday than early in the morning or late in the evening. And that's what is important to keep in mind with that part of the equation with the blood sugar. Another activity that we do that actually will affect our blood sugar, that's exercise. And in my next video, I'm going to explain to you how some exercise will cause the sugar to rise and others will cause it to drop. And by knowing that, it'll be important because you can then really tailor your eating plan to around exercise. So when someone says, oh, eat less and exercise, well, that's okay. But if you really don't know how sugar is involved in your exercise, it's going to be hard for you to really plan it and to really achieve an effective weight loss. And again, in my Patreon video, I really go in depth about how to do that and how you can learn and use this information for that. Other things to consider also are the so-called low carbohydrate diets. There's so many out there, but the big ones, Atkins diet, that was kind of the first, and that's a high protein, medium fat, very low carbohydrate diet. A keto diet, which is kind of a little switch, it's a high fat, moderate protein, but very low carbohydrate. And then there's the paleo diet, which tries to mimic our Paleolithic ancestor diet, which happens to be a lot of whole foods where you go out and forage and get those whole foods, but also meats, a lot of protein and fat, but low carbohydrate in the sense of processed carbohydrates, additive sugar in foods. So that's that's important to understand the differences between these diets. But quite honestly, no diet really works, and that's tough to say. But when I mean the long term, they'll make you lose weight, because when you decrease your carbohydrates completely, what that does is, since I mentioned before that we need sugar for energy, quick energy, and we need that for our brain too. So the sugar that we talked about that's circulating, the excess sugar that goes into fat, your body will then break that fat down if it doesn't have any sugar to produce sugar. So that's kind of the fat burning diets that they talk about. It sounds good, but really lifestyle and knowledge of sugar is what's really going to help you lose weight, because it's really, you have to integrate that into a healthy lifestyle. And by doing that with the knowledge, hopefully, that I'm providing, will help you do that. The obvious foods that will definitely spike your sugar and are considered simple carbohydrates, the high glycemic, are obviously the cakes, the candies, the ice creams, the sodas, the fruit juices, the baked goods. All of those will spike your blood sugar, probably really high. The insulin is not going to be, it's going to take some catch-up time. So you're going to have more sugar circulating than your body needs, and that excess sugar is going to be converted into fat. I'm not saying never eat those things, but when it's good to have the knowledge that hopefully, again, you'll learn from my videos, when you can eat those things, if there's something you can take to prevent them from being absorbed, and what the timing is when you could eat those things. And that's what I've learned in my years of medical practice, but also my personal experimentation, which I'll get into in other videos. In closing, a couple ideas that I want you to understand is that blood sugar comes in different forms, simple and complex. Simple will spike your blood sugar up, kind of wreak havoc on your pancreas and liver with the insulin, and excess will be converted into fat. What I did want to mention also in closing is what can be done to kind of measure your blood sugar. And that right now, it's pretty exciting because there's new technology coming out. The old finger stick where you prick your finger, it really is uncomfortable, onto a strip and put it in a glucose meter and get a reading. I tried that a few times. It really hurts. If you don't have diabetes and don't have to do it, you're not going to do it. But this knowledge is that we can get from knowing our blood sugar is so vital to helping us keep a fit weight. And if we're not at a fit weight, help you lose weight. And the new technology that's available now, CGM, continuous glucose monitors, and they actually attach to your skin. I'm actually wearing one right now. If you can see it there. Whoops, there it is. And I don't have diabetes. I'm using this to get information so I can share it with you, so you can apply it to your own lives. So I hope that's valuable information for you. And that's all for now. So what I'd like you to do is make sure that you subscribe to my Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Please check out my Patreon campaign. I think it'll be worthwhile for you. I do have more extensive videos, especially on how you could utilize this information to actually lose weight. And I'll go into real depth and also talk to you a lot about this continuous glucose monitor. So until next time, I'm Dr. Charles, aka CoachMD, wishing you all the best. Stay strong in mind, in body, and in soul. Bye for now. Hey, Dr. Charles, CoachMD. Thanks for stopping by. Make sure to like and comment below. I'd love to hear from you. If you think you have a friend who might benefit from this video, share it with them. For access to exclusive content, support my Patreon. There you'll get private access to videos, meditations, health tips, even relationship and financial tips. You'll have a say in what I produce and be able to participate in a monthly call with me. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. See you soon.